Organized labor suspends proposed strike for 2 weeks to give room for further negotiations.
We all agree that all issues cannot be resolved at once, and this understanding is to have a plan on how those issues shall be finally resolved in the future.
Nigeria at 60. Federal government urges religious leaders to champion national rebirth.
This anniversary, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, calls for a rebirth of the Nigerian nation, and no group is more qualified to lead it than our religious bodies.
INEC expresses preparedness for Ondo governorship election.
We are satisfied so far with the arrangement. The EO in charge of the local government has confirmed that he has received all the non-sensitive materials.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall continue our Nigeria at 60 series with a focus on political milestones.
So, after attaining independence in 1960, Nigeria's political history began on a very democratic note, but was punctuated, unfortunately, along the line by military incursions into power until the return of democracy in 1999. I'm sure that's a familiar history. Kingsley.
Indeed, Claire, now from 1960 to date, both the military and civilians have had political leadership for about 30 years apiece, and thankfully the celebration of Nigeria's Diamond Jubilee this year is intertwined with 21 years of unbroken democracy, which of course is already now taking root in the country.
And if we must talk of political milestones in 60 years of our independence, 21 years of those civil rule is quite significant given our checkered political history. And of course, like Kingsley, you noted, political watchers believe that indices abound that democracy has really matured.
Well, it's maturing, Claire. Nigeria's political trajectory has been somewhat experimental. That is to say, from a parliamentary system of government after independence, the country has, as it were now, settled for the American-style presidential system, which many believe, of course, is rather expensive to run compared with the parliamentary system.
And Nigeria's political experiment has also seen a progression from regionalism to federalism, as well as from multi-party system to a two-party system that's used for the 1993 presidential elections. However, the nation has since then opened the gateway for more political participation and, of course, returned to having multiple party system, which, of course, comes with its merits and demerits.
Well, Nigeria's political culture has equally progressed to a point where there is a desire or an inclination for peaceful elections generally, as well as transitions away from the vicious politics of the post-independence era that in one instance witnessed the so-called Wild West violence, also known as Operation Wet Here. Now, our political history in recent past has seen a governing party, which was in office cumulatively for 16 years, lose the 2015 general elections to the then opposition party, which is now in power. Talking about the All Progressives Congress, APC.
And drawing from that experience of just referenced, Kingsley just referenced, we've had political leaders such as former President Goodluck Jonathan, who said his political ambition is not worth the blood of any Nigerian. And after the 2015 general elections, he also made that historic phone call to President Muhammadu Buhari to congratulate him, even before the conclusion of collation and final declaration of the winner.
Of course, that peaceful transition in 2015 earned Nigeria tremendous respect from the international community, and it's also a milestone in our political history. Now, there have been attempts by successive administrations over the years to modify the nation's electoral system and laws in order to eliminate manipulation and violence, and such developments, of course, include the deployment of technology, just witnessed recently in the Edo governorship election, which had an outcome that resonated with Nigerians despite a few skirmishes in the lead up to the polls.
So, Nigeria at 60. What are the political milestones? We've just given you some clues. What are the lessons learned and the way forward?
Well, those are pertinent questions. We shall engage our guests in when we have our conversation segment. And Good Morning Nigeria, we're having two topics, by the way. The second leg will deal with the deregulation of the petroleum downstream sector and matters arising therefrom. My name is Kingsley Osadolo, and I welcome you to the program, reaching you as always live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. And we are broadcasting from our nation's capital, Abuja.
And I am Claire Adilabu Abdul Razak, thanking you also for joining us this Monday. It's a very beautiful Monday morning here in Abuja. And of course, in a short while, we'll be bringing you the complimentary part of our program. We'll begin with the news, highlights of the morning news in a moment. We'll also take some snippets from our business news. And much later, Bayo will join us for the newspaper review. Guess who is on the news this morning? Lydia Odije Oche, after a long while. Lydia, it's good to see you again.
Good to see you, Claire and Kingsley. Good morning, Nigeria, and this is the news. The tension which the planned industrial action by organized labor generated over the hike in pump price and electricity tariff has been doused, with the offer of some palliatives by the federal government to cushion the effect of the twin increases. The deal to suspend the strike was reached in Abuja after exhaustive negotiations between the federal government and labor, which led to the signing of a communique by both parties. Our correspondent reports that the agreed palliatives are to be in the areas of transportation, power, housing, agriculture, and humanitarian support.
We all agree that all issues cannot be resolved at once. And this understanding is to have a plan on how those issues shall be finally resolved in the future.
We have discussed the issue of the state of our refineries with timeline on how to achieve sustainable refining.
Federal government to make available to organized labor 133 numbers CNG LPG driven mass transit buses immediately, and provide to the major cities across the country on a scale on the basis thereafter to all states and local government before December 2021.
The federal government and labor also agreed to set up a technical committee comprising relevant MDAs, the NLC and TUC, which will work for a duration of 2 weeks, effective today, Monday, 28th September 2020, to examine the justifications for the new policy in view of the need for the validation of the basis for the new cost-reflective tariff as a result of the conflicting information from the fields which appear different from the data presented to justify the new policy by the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission.
And patriotism by the organized labor, as painful as some of the decisions are to your workers, you put the cause of our nation first, and you succumbed to our persuasions and agreed that we need to move forward in certain areas. We will continue to engage to ensure that the decisions we have arrived at tonight are implemented to the letter.
Suspension of the strike is for 2 weeks, after which it will be reviewed for further actions. Earlier, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Femi Gbajabiamila, had pleaded with organized labor to suspend the planned mass protest and strike action over the increase in petrol pump price and electricity tariff to avoid plunging the masses into suffering.
I believe in the next couple of weeks or less, the budget will be presented. Many of these things have a lot to do with the budget. We will definitely interface at this point. We will definitely seek a meeting again with the executive. We'll reiterate our position. But in the meantime, we would want to appeal to you, quite honestly, only for no other reason but for those people out there that.
Away from labor matters now, clerics in the country have been urged to champion national rebirth with messages of peace and tolerance. This was at the interdenominational church service to mark Nigeria's 60th independence anniversary, which held at the National Christian Center, Abuja.
This anniversary, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, calls for a rebirth of the Nigerian nation, and no group is more qualified to lead it than our religious bodies. I therefore charge the Christian Association of Nigeria to provide leadership to its faithfuls in making Nigeria the great nation that it has been destined to be.
Now a bit of politics. The chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, has visited local government offices of the commission in Ondo State to assess the level of preparedness for the October 10 governorship election at the grassroots. Shortly after the visit, the INEC boss told reporters that the commission will organize a free, fair, and hate-free election in Ondo State. And now to coronavirus matters. Coronavirus cases update from the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, NCDC, reveals there are 126 new cases of COVID-19 in Nigeria, raising the number of confirmed cases to 58,324 in the country. Of the 126 new cases, the FCT has 30, Lagos 24, Rivers 23, Ogun 13, Katsina and Plateau have 9 each, Ondo has 6, Kaduna and Kwara states have 4 new cases each, Imo has 2, while Bauchi and Edo states have 1 new case each. Lagos maintains the lead in the breakdown of cases per state with 19,239 cases. The FCT follows with 5,674 cases, while Plateau comes third with 3,388 cases. 49,794 recovered patients have been discharged, with 1,108 deaths recorded so far. That's the morning news. The program continues with Claire and Kingsley after this break. Good morning.
As a strong immune system increases the chances of victims surviving COVID-19, a corruption-free society creates opportunities for citizens to thrive and prosper. Build your immunity. Stop corruption now. Report all acts of corruption to ICPC on this toll-free number 0800 2255 4272. This message is brought to you by ICPC and NTA.
Hi. I'm done. Really? Yes.
Kilo day, na so walk, you know the finish. Amaka, kilo day, na so walk, you know the tire. Oh, 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 oh. Ah, yeah, 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 yeah.
There's an easier way to get more data. Get more out of life with the new Airtel data plans. Dial *141# now. Data is life.
Airtel, the smartphone network. Yes, that's the painful effect of what corruption costs you. But what does corruption cost us all? Watch Bad Guys on NTA Network, 6 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. every Wednesday from the Akin Fadeyi Foundation. Bad Guys. Who are the bad guys? Join us.
You clean your teeth every morning, but that fresh breath feeling just doesn't last. The answer? Easy. You keep your teeth strong and healthy and give your mouth long-lasting fresh breath with new Oral-B 2-in-1 toothpaste. It helps strengthen your teeth and gives you long-lasting fresh breath.
So fresh, still fresh, and still fresh.
Stay strong, stay fresh. New Oral-B toothpaste for strong teeth and long-lasting fresh breath.
All right, you're watching Good Morning Nigeria on NTA's network service. Coming up next now is business news. And here's our correspondent, Chimabi Walter Nanji.
Boosting domestic manufacturing of critical drugs and vaccines to ensure their sustainable domestic supply and reduce the bulk manufacturing costs of the drugs, herbal medicines and vaccines into Nigeria is the core of the over 100 billion naira earmarked for the health care sector in Nigeria by the Central Bank of Nigeria. The Governor, Central Bank of Nigeria, Godwin Emefiele, noted that as a result of the importance of the project, the bank has reiterated its resolve to committing considerable human, material and financial resources to monitoring both the disbursement and utilization of this fund in a robust and verifiable manner.
This program is directly in conformity with our resolve to diversify the base of the Nigerian economy, be a catalyst for job creation, and facilitate inclusive economic growth in Nigeria.
With business news, I'm Chimabi Walter Naji.
All right, thank you, Chimabi, for the business package. Newspaper review is coming up next.
Our newspaper reviewer, Bayo Atebe, is right here with us in the studios. Bayo, good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Kinsley. Good morning, Claire.
Bayo, good to see you.
Thank you. Good morning, Nigeria.
Okay. All right. Let's begin with the Daily Trust newspaper. The lead story is on the planned strike by Labour, and it comes with a kicker: fuel price and electricity tariff. Labour succumbs to pressure, shelves nationwide strike. Labour succumbs to pressure, shelves nationwide strike. With two riders, federal government orders DISCOs to suspend electricity tariff hike and says fuel subsidy removal remains. You can see the photograph there on the front page. This was at the negotiation over the planned strike by Labour, and Speaker of the House of Representatives presiding over a meeting of principal members of the House Committee on Labour with NLC President, TUC President during the intervention meeting. That was also yesterday. 7 days after, anxiety at Zauzau yet to get new emir. And right at the foot of the front page, jubilation as Lekon wins BB Niger reality show. 2023, Obasanjo meets PDP leaders, and Tambuwal orders probe of SA's son in sex video, page 54. And then below the nameplate of the Trust newspaper, 3 headlines there. Oshibajo says Nigeria could break up if, find out what he says, page 10, greater detail. Again, Boko Haram attacks Zulum's convoy, that's page 53. 6 sins hindering Nigeria's development. First Indigenous Railway MD, hear him out, page 7. Clear.
Okay, so let me take the Nation newspaper, and the lead story is still on the labor strike, and it says federal government shifts ground in bid to stop labor strike. And the riders to the left-hand column there, electricity tariff for renegotiation, NLC, TUC rethink industrial action. And you see the graphics picture story, the center of the paper, the front page there, the labor and government face-off, the ratios, the figures, and the demands. And of course, you also have right there a government's position outlined, the offer outlined, and how it affects the people for whom allegedly the strike will benefit. Now, of course, you also have other stories on the inside page relating to the strike. To other stories on the front page, Zulum's convoy, Army recounts how soldiers, policemen were killed. It's right there on the front page. And El-Rufai awaits security report on Sazao Emirship candidates. It's trending at the foot of the paper. And a little below above the nameplate, ACF plans economic blueprint for North. Details of that on page 8. And Olamilekan, known as Lekan, gets 250 million naira votes. It's on page 8. It's there from BB Niger. And while housemates grabs 30 million naira. Now, CBN's rate cut triggers rush for equity, and how Nigeria can avoid breakup. That's by Oshibajo. That's the vice president. Okay, so. B.
Well, the anxiety about industrial unrest has been put to rest. This was sequel to negotiations that began late yesterday evening and didn't end until about 2:50 a.m. this morning. But the agreement between government team and labor team comprising Nigeria Labour Congress and TUC reached certain agreement. First, they are to set up a technical committee of the ministries, department, agency, NLC and TUC to work and examine justification of new policy validation, particularly on the basis of the cost-reflective tariff as related to electricity. There was conflicting information that was presented, one from the field and the other from the data of the Nigeria Electricity Regulation Commission. Consequently, the concerns were about meter deployment challenges as well as timelines for a massive rollout. The third condition that they also looked at is that they are also to advise government on issues that have hindered deployment of 6 million meters. Fourthly, DISCOs are also to suspend the cost-reflective tariff in the meantime for about a period of 2 weeks until all the meetings and agreement by the committee are turned out to the negotiating teams. Palliative to ameliorate the sufferings of workers, particularly in the area of petrol, transport, power, housing, agriculture, and humanitarian support are to be provided. 40% of government stake in DISCOs and the stake of workers is to be reflected in the board of the DISCOs. It means their representation will be reflected there. Also, an inclusive independent review of the Memorandum of Understanding that led to the privatization will be looked into. It is hoped that this will be taken before the end of 2020 with Labour represented during this committee. So all is well that ends well. But prior to that time, it may be recalled that the Natural Oil and Gas Suppliers Association had dissociated itself from the call. So also was the Airline Operators of Nigeria. And it may also be called that the Nigerian Youth Congress had advised Labour to be wary of politicians and not to be used to destabilize government. NLC was particularly worried that government, in spite of the fact that they were at negotiating table, had gotten persons to go and file injunctions at the industrial court. However, Labour said that they also had a court order that had made the electricity tariff. Credit must be given to Speaker of the House of Representatives, Gbajabiamila, who met with Labour and also met with the Vice President late yesterday, and he gave assurances that a truce will be reached, and consequently, a truce has been reached. Lest we forget, COVID is still here.
Yeah, and before we get onto the issue of COVID, a few things to straighten out, Bayo. The issue of the increase in the pump price of petrol arising from the regulation is fairly straightforward.
Yes.
The one on electricity tariff, the tariff is now no longer based on cost reflection, but on service. It's now service-based tariff, according to the new model that was spelled out. Namely, if you have less than 12 hours of power supply in a day, you fall into a certain band. If you have more than 12 hours of electricity supply in a day, then of course you also fall into another band. But it is virtually indiscriminate. I've bought power since then, and the tariff increase is just about 100%. About 100%, and there's no justification. I mean, for those who consume electricity in this country, there's no justification for it, because the service is epileptic. And we had asked the question on Good Morning Nigeria: how will I know that my area receives 12 hours of electricity supply in a day? I will sit down at home to be calculating how many hours the light has come when I'm supposed to be out working, so I will earn money and be able to buy credit.
Because we've also raised the question of government, paying some form of intervention to the discos when, they're supposed to be, private entities. If you are, contracting out, a service, to the private firms, they're supposed to be ready and financially, viable to take on the job. So I know that we have raised this issue in the course of our conversations on Good Morning Nigeria, because the government is saying now we can't pay, that's part of the government's position, is that they cannot pay the 50 billion naira monthly to discos.
Well, there are a number of opaque issues still, in my view, with regard to the governance of even the discos. The governments are also shareholders in some of these discos.
Yes.
So, when last did the discos hold their AGM?
40% share.
When last did they hold their AGM?
Yes.
What are their reporting lines? What are the issues? If government is a shareholder and you are having this kind of challenges that the discos are facing, what have the shareholders said? And what have been their resolutions? Sometimes we just say, oh, no, pass the buck. You can't supply meters. So happily, the impediment, one of the impediments to that, to say, look, there was a customs duty rate that they needed to pay. Now that has been removed. Get meters. There are all kinds of issues. Consumers are still worried that some of the old NEPA habits haven't just been overcome. Namely, it is said or alleged that in some cases, even the discos don't get to collect the actual revenue and receive the actual revenue that are due to them because of the underhand tactics of some of their field workers.
So yes. Some of the companies, I think it was some time ago, it was in the papers that those manufacturing the meters, cried out that they had run out of raw materials. Yes. So and the billing is based on the fact that if you have your meters installed, how many homes in Nigeria today can boast of meters?
Yes, there's certainly a shortage in meter supply for consumers, and the blame is on both sides. Those who are supposed to supply electricity, some of their personnel benefit from not metering. Secondly, many of our competitors also employ personnel of the electricity company to make illegal connections for which they subvert the agency that provides electricity.
And this is why a lot of people are still buying, transformers.
Yes.
A lot of communities are buying transformers.
In spite of the fact that for a long time, there has been a principle that community should not indulge in buying transformers. But if people, out of frustration for wanting electricity, gather money and buy transformers, in spite of that, the electricity is still epileptic. But this is one of the conditions for which an agreement has been reached, for which Labour is also to engage government and the Nigeria Electricity Regulatory Commission within this 2 weeks period, and we hope they will be able to overcome some of those obstacles.
We're glad that there's a truce now between government and Labour, and of course...
If the agreement stipulates that there should be a suspension of the increase in electricity tariff, that should be implemented with effect from this moment.
Yes.
So that it doesn't become like what you find with the fuel station attendants. Yes. They will say our engineers have not come to come and adjust the meter, to adjust it downward. But if it is to go upwards, you go to the filling station, is the new price automatic.
But it's part, is that part of the agreement? What this paper is saying is that it is for renegotiation, not a suspension.
They have suspended the reflective tariff for the period for which these negotiations by the panel set up by the federal government team and Labour team are to talk over. I hope they're
listening to
the rider is there on the front page of Daily Trust newspaper. To the rider to the lead headline, it says federal government orders DISCOs to suspend electricity tariff hike. The federal government will not be giving you an order to say suspend it in 2 weeks' time. The order is immediate, and we hope that any person who's going to buy electricity credit this morning goes there and he finds the new...
they've reverted to the old rate.
And by the way, this is part of what happened. When they had the switch to the new tariff, their online platforms were no longer working. Their online platforms were not working. If you try to buy online at some www address that you go to buy your power online, it wasn't working. You went to the AEDC office, say in Abuja, for instance, and they will be telling you POS is not working, cash, and they will print it in out 100%.
Well, part of the offers now, if I could quickly read that before we take the editorials, payment of special allowances, disbursement of 2.5 billion naira for 50,000 levels 01 to 04 civil servants, mass housing scheme for workers, and special buses for workers to run on auto gas, and then metering of electricity consumers. So I think these are the offers. So
there's a story we have to be of concern about. Attack on the convoy of Governor of Borno State, and it is the second time it's happening in less than a month.
2 convoys, actually.
Yes. Well, so you can imagine.
Yeah. Well, my advice, it's one, you sympathize with those the families who have lost their loved ones,
soldiers
in these attacks. These are security personnel trained at public expense and ordinarily required to provide security. But I think that the time has also come that Governor Zulum has shown a great deal of passion in serving his people. He was once a commissioner before he now became a governor, and he has shown that he wants to push back the advance of the terrorists or minimize their impact, the impact of the activities on the state. But I think it has become necessary for him to also now begin to take precautions.
Yes.
Indeed.
It is not just sufficient to say you are going into an area. If you faced an attack once or twice in the past, and at some point, if you recall, I think there was the highway linking Damaturu and Maiduguri. There were terrorists operating there, and he himself now came. And of course, he had an altercation with some of the military personnel. It shows his passion. But you have a state security council. Your state security council, from time to time, should give you real-time intelligence so that you know where to go to and where not to go to. Because if the terrorists now believe that they can have a high-value target and put that target to sleep, then, of course, it becomes a different ballgame altogether. So, Governor Zulum, Professor, thank you very much, for your zeal and passion in serving Borno people. But it's time to also take precautions and then don't step into landmines.
Security experts always advise that VIP in conflict area always attract bullet, because they want to make a point that they want to get across to the VIP.
Yes. Okay, Bayo, let's quickly look at the editorial in just a minute. And it's all about the Edo election and triumph of democracy. That's how the Nigerian Pilot captions its editorial this morning. And basically what it's saying is that, Bayo, that, since for the first time since 2015, we've seen, an election, to use this paper's words, with less partisanship among security agencies, electoral officials, election monitors. We see voters, the people of Edo, fully ready to fight and defend the vote. And for this purpose, they largely rejected vote buying, minimal reports of violence, ballot box snatching, and so on. This paper says this is democracy in action. But the question is, can this be sustained and replicated in...
Agreeably, the editorial is saying that this Edo election has now set a standard, and that standard elicits hope for democracy in our nation. And all it is emphasizing is that participants, particularly politicians, should use this as a standard and should not move our nation backwards in the era of politicking. This should serve as a standard below which we should not fall against. And emphatically, they also said that the president also emphasized that this is an attempt to establish a legacy that will establish democracy on a sound footing.
All right, Bayo, I did promise I was going to bring my yellow card.
You forgot again?
Yes, I forgot again. I don't know why I keep forgetting. But as Kingsley, enlightened us in one of the editions, it's Ogbani for this segment.
What does Ogbani mean?
It's completed.
Fantastic. All right, Bayo Chinedu, thanks a lot for being around.
Thank you
see you again tomorrow. Okay, it's Good Morning Nigeria, live on NTS Network Service, and we're broadcasting from our Abuja headquarters studios. We're taking a short break now. When we return, we'll get into our conversation segments.
Guess what?
What?
I scored a hat-trick today.
Cool.
Wow.
And how did you celebrate?
Just do your hands like this.
And hold your nose like this.
Body odor is caused by germs. That's why you need the new improved Dettol Cool Soap, which protects against 99.9% odor-causing germs with an extra burst of menthol freshness. Dettol, be 100% sure.
The chairman, Interministerial Committee for the celebration of Nigeria's 60th Independence Anniversary and Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa, invites you to the following events. Monday 28, launch of the National Ethics and Integrity Policy as well as Integrity Award by Mr. President to commemorate the 20th anniversary of ICPC. Venue, State House, Presidential Villa, Abuja. Time 10 a.m. Historical exhibition, National Press Center, Radio House, Abuja. 3 p.m. Thursday, October 1st, Guard of Honor Anniversary Parade, Eagle Square, Abuja, time 10 a.m. Anniversary theme, Together. Please note, these events are strictly by invitation and all COVID-19 protocols will be adhered to. Chairman, Media and Publicity Subcommittee, Announcer.
Sensitivity is a short, sharp pain that people experience when they have something hot or cold getting to the nerve of the tooth. If the sensitivity is left alone, it may get worse. Dentists recommend Sensodyne. It's able to calm the nerve of the tooth. The proof's in the results. It works. Sensitivity is a short, sharp pain that people experience when they have something hot or cold getting to the nerve of the tooth. If the sensitivity is left alone, it may get worse. Dentists recommend Sensodyne. It's able to calm the nerve of the tooth. The proof's in the results. It works.
NTA TV College Jos, an affiliate of Ahmadu Bello University Zaria, is currently admitting students for its ordinary diploma programs in television journalism, television production, and television engineering. Interested candidates are advised to obtain relevant information concerning eligibility at our website at www.ntatvc.edu.ng or marketing department of any NTA station nationwide. For further information, contact Assistant Director, Marketing, NTA TV College Jos on 0803-314-4383 or the Academic Office of the College on 0806-980-9807. Announcer, Registrar.
My tailor don't be your mate. He don't live for your grade. If he knock you up, tell no go the hell. Anytime I want to celebrate, he goes so the clock, he know the late. He dey sweet me like you chocolate. My tailor no they disappoint. Oh. Tailor we go Harvard University. Oh, yo, yo. Nakami, you don't go they jump like a baka. If you see my tailor,
make that switch today and enjoy all calls at 11 kobo per second. Free data on every recharge and double data for 3 months on the network with the widest 4G coverage.
Okay, my tailor.
Airtel, the smartphone network.
All right, you are watching Good Morning Nigeria, once again still on the network service of the NTA. To begin our conversation on Nigeria's political strides at 60, here's a background up by our correspondent Abdul Malik Adio.
In a couple of days, Nigeria will celebrate our 60th independence anniversary as a sovereign nation.
The flame of freedom once alight shall not go out again in our continent.
The Diamond Jubilee is considered a remarkable milestone in Nigerians' history despite all odds. Since independence, Nigerians' political history has been punctuated by military interventions, beginning with the 1966 coup d'etat, and on the aggression, the military held sway for about 30 years of Nigerians' political history until the return to democracy in 1999.
The annulment of the June 12 election was a setback on democratic, political and economic development in the country.
As Nigerians mark 60 years of self-rule, it is also celebrating 21 years of unbroken democracy. The nation's adopted system of government, which many affirm has come to stay and shaping our political history. Democracy experts believe have influenced a grip on democratic tenets, maintenance of peace and tranquility in Nigeria's development trajectory.
If democracy is the path to El Dorado, as a lot of people, say, then political parties are the vehicles through which that road, is traveled. And therefore, it means that we must have credible, viable, strong, virile political parties in order to have a democracy.
Political watchers are of the view that 60 years after independence, 50 years after a civil war, the new decade will be a defining moment for Nigerians, especially in charting a new roadmap towards repositioning the country on the path of growth and development.
The future of Nigeria's political system lies in this reform, institutional reform, that will make it impossible for occupants of political position to help themselves.
Good Morning Nigeria today will focus on Nigerians' political milestones, the lessons learned, and way forward as a nation 60 years after independence.
All right, that was our background report put together by our correspondent Abdul Malik Adio, setting of our conversation for today on Nigeria's political sojourn in 60 years. Let me quickly introduced our panel this morning, seated here in Abuja, and of course, joined by other guests via Skype and from our Enugu studio. But let me begin with Professor Nuhu Yakub, who is a familiar face. He's right here with us in Abuja studio. He's a political scientist and former Vice Chancellor of the University of Abuja, as well as Sokoto State University. Prof, thank you once again for joining us.
Thank you.
And we also have here in Abuja, Her Excellency Ambassador Nkoyo Toyo, founder, Gender and Development Action, former House of Representatives member, and of course, former Nigerian ambassador to Ethiopia. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
All right, and joining us from our Enugu Network studios, would like to welcome Osita Okechukwu, who is Director General Voice of Nigeria. Mr. Okechukwu, pleasure to have you with us on the program. And via Skype with us this morning, Senator Gbenga Obadara is a politician and former lawmaker who represented Ogun Central Senatorial District. Via Skype, once again, Senator Gbenga Obadara. Pleasure to have you with us this morning.
Yeah, good morning, Nigerians.
Okay, so let's begin the conversation straight away. Nigeria, of course, is 60 this year, and we all know our political history has been somewhat checkered, achieving stability, as it were, for the past 21 years now. But regardless, I know that there are many ways of ticking off Nigeria's political milestones in the 60 years since we've been independent. So let's get the ball rolling with Professor Nuhu Yakub. Professor Nuhu Yakub, if you were to look at Nigeria's political landscape, what would you say have been the peaks and the lows for us?
Thank you very much. Well, the peaks would be certainly the fact that despite all our problems, when I discuss the lows later, we have remained one entity, one territorial entity, and it is a milestone achievement, as a matter of fact, because right even before independence, we had misgivings about the British creation called Nigeria. Some people said, we have our differences, we can never stay together. And if we have been able to weather the storm since 1960 to date, I think that it should be a major achievement. And also the fact that even when there was, clear, attempts at integration in 1966, 67, 60, 70, the patriotic zeal of Nigerians to remain, together triumphed, and by 1970 the Civil War came to an end. So I think we should actually be grateful to God and also to the spirit of Nigerians that we have remained one since 1960. The lows, of course, for me as a political scientist, is the fact that we have had attempts made to scuttle democratic development in this country, and it's a major low for this country. And despite the fact that from 1999 to date, we have had, unbroken, attempts at elections. And I want to make a distinction at this point between, having electoral democracy and substantive, what I call, or normally refer to as substantive democracy. Electoral democracy is what exactly, and even that one, I don't think that even the practitioners will agree, in their heart of hearts, that we are having electoral integrity, election that is, credible, and there is, the voters have actually made their choices, and those choices, glued with the aspiration of getting a democratic entity. So, but for substantive, we have to aim at substantive democracy. What I think we should have is, yes, at intervals of 4 years, since we have adopted the presidential system of government, it should be possible to actually allow votes to count, and that those who actually won should be allowed to take the mantle of leadership as, mandated by the people. Secondly, it is very important that when we talk about democracy, there should be the absence of violence. This is a critical component of the Nigerian, so-called democratic journey. That, anytime, either when I write or when I present papers or whenever I have opportunity like this to make discussions on Nigeria's democracy, I turn to actually score the Nigerian democratic attempts very low. So these are some of the things. Then finally, one of the lows of this entity called Nigeria is the fact that we have never been able to build a united country. Go to a place like Ghana, ask the average Ghanaian, where are you from? They will tell you they are Ghanaians, first and foremost. Nobody is thinking about Ashanti or Ewe Or you also go to South Africa and you ask the South Africans, where are you from? Which ethnic background are you from? They say, no, there's nothing like ethnic background. We are South Africans. And I think this is what we have not been able to get very correctly. And it is quite painful that we have come this low, in the sense that it was in this country, somebody from either Sokoto or Kano, Sokoto became a mayor in Enugu at a point in time. So in this country, we have had, for instance, the current Honorable Minister of Internal Affairs, Mr. Arabeshala, served as a commissioner in Lagos State. And several other Nigerians have been, co-opted in terms of, or integrated into, places of location where the residents, where they are, to participate in the goings on in terms of politics in those areas. But beyond that, the extent to which you have ethnic, awareness and nationalism, macro-nationalism, I call it, is something that is actually disturbing to any Nigerian who is bent on actually having a Nigerian who thinks of himself or themselves, first and foremost, as a Nigerian.
All right, Prof, thank you very much. Thank you for the points that you've raised. Ambassador Nkoye Tuoyo, you've listened to Prof. At 60, here in Africa, or in the part of the world really, at 60 you were admitted into the club that we know as the Club of Elders or the Club of Senior Citizens. Nigeria is 60. Can we be admitted into that club politically?
Thank you very much, Claire. Very important question, and thank you to the everybody. Thank you, Nigerians. I think sometimes we start the lamentations of Nigeria and we can't get out of it. But really, there is a lot that we are seriously unhappy about. Just to think about one or two things that Prof has said, particularly this question of unity. I guess that unity has to be much more than just a question of coexistence. I think the large part of what we used to think was a huge profit to us as a country, which was the fact that we were together, is actually being eroded by the internal contradictions within the country today. It was okay in the 70s to think about our unity because we were actually coming out of the Civil War, and the Civil War had marred us in many ways. But post-Civil War, we remained as a country, and yet the benefit of remaining as that country, the so-called united entity, and I said the so-called because even the context of that unity has been often a challenge to justify. It has come to a position that today people have decided, like Professor said, it's better to become a member of a subnational body or subnational entity than it is to become a member of the country itself. So I would like to say that our size is important. I would like to say that our numbers and population is a great asset to us. I would like to say that the fact that we have a huge young population is a remarkable asset to us. But the beauty of those assets that we have, the landmass, the diversity in terms of its vegetation, ecology and everything, the size of its population, even the human capacity development, the intensity of the human development capacity within the country are all huge assets that we have seen over the last 60 years evolve and would normally, under normal circumstances, be some of the pillars that will lead to a very, very viable and strong country. But that's not happening. Then, of course, we have the resources. At a point, we had resources to really jumpstart our country. Today, we're a very poor country. We're the poorest country. We have the largest population of poor people in the world. So we are now a poor country, unfortunately, and one that cannot pay its bills anymore, which is why, of course, NLC is talking about strike. So what are we saying in effect? We're saying we're 60 years old, but we are very, very far from being a stable 60-year-old environment. Nigeria is very unstable, it's very volatile, and it is poor.
These are the qualities that define us at 60. Now, what do we say are some of the highlights? There were moments in our country where, if you looked at our foreign policy, it was the beauty of Africa to behold. The days and times when we were involved in the struggles to free South Africa from apartheid, huge international inroads that were made. We were one of the countries of the world, not even in Africa, which was a point of reference globally, particularly in terms of our military force. But look at it. We can't even defend the boundaries of our country anymore. A governor of a state was almost dealt with the other day, attacked by whoever, bandits or wherever they are called, or terrorists or whatever they are. So even those gains that came in the 60 years, I think what I'm trying to say in effect is that there are gains which are still viable and can turn the 60 years of the country into a corporate success story. But at the same time, there are so many things that are setting the country back, and that's the challenge.
Sorry to interject. Some of the issues that you've teed off, especially with the issue of terrorism and attacks, they are not issues that are peculiar, with Nigeria. So, does it also become a defining factor?
The peculiarity is our inability to deal with it. Yeah. In many other countries where this is happening, there have been huge efforts at containment. It seems to me that increasingly what we are seeing in the country is a decline in capacity. I think I grew up in a Nigeria where I didn't feel we lacked the ability as a people to do things. But now, I am not sure we have the ability anymore. I think we've moved from the question of, this is NTA, the largest network in Africa, to a question of what does that largest NTA network mean to Africa and mean to itself. The point in question is that you do have in the last 60 years the architecture or the structural framework that should be able to build a viable and potentially good country. But I think we have totally mismanaged it, totally undermined it, not just mismanaged. We've gone a step further to undermine it. And in place of this undermining are the growth of these centrifugal forces that are saying, give me my own part of Nigeria, I want to go away with it. I want to do the things you have not been able to do for me. I think I can do it in my own corner of Nigeria, which is the saddest part of us, of the story today.
Okay, Ambassador Nkoyo, thank you very much. Earlier when you were speaking, you said Nigeria, in paraphrase, has become, is unstable, is unsafe. Nigeria wasn't always like this.
No.
So it has become, probably would better describe it from your perspective, has become, right?
Yes.
Okay, fine. Now, let's go over to our Enugu Network Center, Osita Okechukwu, Director General, Voice of Nigeria. Let's bring him into the conversation now. Tell us, from your own perspective, what Nigeria's political odyssey has been 60 years on.
For me, Nigeria had engaged in phases of development. If we start with social infrastructure, I was 5 years old when we became independent, and we had only 2 universities then. Today we have over 200 universities and polytechnics and colleges of education, both privately owned, federal government owned, and state owned. For me, it's a big achievement. If you head to fiscal infrastructure, we have more federal and state roads asphalted across the country. In some states of the Federation, from town to town, you have asphalts. In some other states, you have seen improvement in the average standard of living. And we know the drawback Professor Nuhu talked about and Her Excellency talked about, but that is a phase in development across all countries of the world. Going back history of any country in the world, they went through such trajectory and got along. But what we're now saying is on the governance infrastructure. Nobody remembers that Nigeria today has what is called Freedom of Information Act that had made Nigeria one of the freest countries of the world. There are countries, yes, better than us in economic development, but they do not have freedom. And we cherish that freedom. And that freedom had enabled Nigerians who are outside our shores to be doing well where they are. Because if you grow up in Nigeria, you have a sense of self-worth. Yes, there are bickerings among the ethnic groups, but the irony is that I do not know any ethnic nationality that had no problem of their own within house. So it's not as if it's we versus you. No, that erosion of is a very, very utopian assumption. Yes, you are Igbo. If the Igbos are one, then everybody. The Igbos are not one. The Hausas are not one. The Yorubas are not one. The Tips are not one. The Shekiris are not one. The point of the matter is that this is our phase of development. And as we continue to improve on our social infrastructure and fiscal infrastructure, we overcome. I see Nigeria getting greater by the day because as growing up, I know there are trajectories of drawbacks, yes, but the point is that a holistic view of the country shows that Nigeria is developing at a very rapid rate that will take us to the giant of Africa that we are. As Her Excellency said, anybody who looks into our population should thank our stars. We should all be grateful to Almighty God. One, we have over 60% of the youth cadre. We belong to the 10 most populous countries of the world. Among those 10, it's only about 3 where we belong that have youth advantage. The biggest ones, like the Chinese, they have more old people than young people. The Indians can also go 50-50, but we are going 70 youths. So I think what we do is how best to manage our youths, how best to channel their thoughts, that it is not about the friendship between one ethnic group or the other, because most of those towns and villages where we come from, they are also bickerings. I studied about my own village, and I said, if there's bickering in my village, we have the same Igbo stock, we have the same parentage going by oral history, and about 89%, 98% of Eke, where I come from, are Catholics. Then where's bickering? Where do we locate the bickering? Do we locate it on ethnicity? No. Do we locate it on language? No. So the point is that this is our level of development. And the more we start looking inwards, those in their various states should start querying their own governors, start querying their own chairman of local council and their councillors. The more we use public funds to develop ourselves and our country, it will be better for us. And then the peace we are looking at, because we're looking at the underdevelopment as if it is caused by one ethnic group or the other. Yes, there are contradictions, but those contradictions are germane or among the cause of any development. What is going on today in America about racism? Nobody thought of that before, but it was there. But it had been, by the fact of the tone of the leadership, it had gotten heightened. So all we need to do is, wherever we are, let's tell ourselves the honest truth, that the problem is not ethnicity, it's not a tribe per se or religion, but our cause. How do we face our utilization of public funds? Do we collectively, wherever we find ourselves, place the public interest above self-interest? Because if you claim that you are representing the Igbos and you are not doing well with their public fund, you are just being deceitful. Or you claim you are representing the Hausas or Yorubas and you are not prudent with the management of resources at their disposal, you are not helping the country. So I think that our problem is, most importantly, how do we manage the public resource at our disposal, especially for some of us who have the social contract of presiding over the country on behalf of our people. So we must not forget our people. So the contradiction is basically on mismanagement of our resource. I'm not saying that there are no contradictions on ethnicity. Yes, there are, but it's not the main issue. The main issue that keeps us where we are is how do we place public interest above self. We are becoming too selfish, and because of that selfishness, it's not been very helpful. So I think Nigeria, on the whole, we cannot say that we are not developing. We are fast developing.
All right, thank you, DG Vaughan. Thank you very much. Let's now bring in our guest via Skype, Senator Gbenga Obadara, who is a politician, of course, former lawmaker representing Ogun Central Senatorial District. Senator, you've listened to the three guests that have spoken so far, and indeed, Ambassador Nkoye Tuoyo did say Nigeria has become. We do know that all entities, that's what philosophers say, all entities are in a constant state of being, so we're moving, moving. So it's within this context, I'd like you to evaluate for us the framework that has shaped our political history. How has it evolved?
Hello, good morning to my co-discussant and Nigerians. Even for a child to have been born and been able to live to 60 years, let us thank God for the Federal Republic of Nigeria. We know that the political landscape, considering our 60 years of existence, that the integrum which we have run over time, and we had a consistent political years that's between 1999 to date. Let's give glory to God. But given that the landscape was supposed to have achieved, it is extremely not palatable. Why? You see many elections are being run, and you can see what becomes of our elections. If the election is not monetized, you will see it will be rigged. If it is not rigged, you will see the manipulations. But having said that, for us to start having a flip-flop and still being able to get it right, imagine what happened in Edo State. You can see the beauty of democracy. And I believe if you give the opportunity of continuity, it can continue to get better. As a politician, I know that we need to behave in consistency with the global norm electorally. If we're able to do this, it will go a long way in making the Federal Republic of Nigeria a better place for every one of us. The political landscape of Nigeria, the issue of thuggery, the issue of, having to start maiming ourselves unnecessarily, there are things that are heart-wrecking. So we look at even the Constitution, taking the Constitution into consideration, what we have not been able to achieve politically is the ability to sit down as a nation to fathom a constitution that will take care of our needs. But in the present one we are even still running, are we really going by the constitution as enshrined? And the ones that we have been able to look at the constitutional amendment that have been having every 4 years at the National Assembly. The question here, even electoral acts been affected. And as laudable as they are, none has been signed to law. So you can see resources, serious with what we are doing at the National Assembly. Are we really working at the National Assembly to justify the existence of that institution? A situation where the Constitution, any motion.
We're sorry. I think we've lost a connection to Senator Benga Obadara. We do hope to reconnect with him. Do we have him on? Okay, okay. So we'll return to you, Senator, once we are able to establish the contact. Let me come back to Professor Nuhu Yakub. I asked Senator Obadara a question. I said, looking at the framework that shaped Nigeria's political history, how has it evolved? And I know that we started with the Constitution. There have been several constitutions which defined our trajectory. Yeah. Now, can we do an evaluation of, these constitutions and how, it has helped to shape, Nigeria today?
I think, the starting point, as a matter of fact, in terms of, what is it that we are now faced with, in contemporary times, is to look at the 1946 Constitution, the Richard's Constitution, as it was called. Mm-hmm. That Constitution was the one that actually developed the framework of federalism, which became actually, a practical, governance system by 1951. Mm-hmm. Now, at the point that the federal system was introduced, the principle, it was under the principle of, let's accept that Nigeria is diverse, and there could be unity in diversity. That was the basic principle.
So it recognized the diversity of
course, yes. Unity, that's what it was it was captioned as unity in diversity when it was introduced. But I think, for me, I'm now beginning to question the rationale of even introducing the federal system. It's not as if federalism is not a good, system of governance. That's not what I'm saying. But because it was already, accepted that we are palpably different, we could not exist in unison. And therefore, we have to get a governance system that will recognize this unity. And I think what has happened as a result of that is the fact that so much prominence is given to our differences instead of the unity. And that's for me, that is the implication of, bringing in principle or policy that, it became like it became the force that, in fact, it's like a genie. It came out of the bottle, and we cannot control it any longer.
But can we really assume that those differences are not there in a national anthem?
No, it's not that we don't have differences. Let me give you a comparative example. Britain is it's a country.
Confederate.
It's a unitary. It has a uniform state, but they are trying. The Scottish now, for instance, are trying to ask for their own, autonomy. The Welsh are also there, and you also will have the Irish, in Northern Ireland. But why is it that it was not preeminent for them to adopt federal system and they introduce it in a backward relatively in terms of economic development and even sophistication in governance, a country like Nigeria?
I just wondering, Prof.
Yeah.
Let me pause here and bring in Ambassador Nkoyo here because this is a critical issue that we're talking about now. Ambassador Nkoyo, how would you respond to the view sometimes expressed by some analysts that part of the challenge that Nigeria has faced after independence has been this tension, as it were, between the original platforms on which the country kicked off, where you had strong regional governments and therefore a focus on those regions in a federal system, and that the challenge then became one of seeking to impose a unitary system of governance on the country. Because sometimes when we talk about our founding fathers and the accomplishments that they achieved during their time, we mentioned Emma Okwara in the East. It was a regional government. Tafawa Balewa was federal. But of course, in the North, you had Sir Ahmadu Bello. In the West, you had Obafemi Awolowo, free education, the development of Cocoa House, and all kinds of things that went on. Then, of course, in the Midwest, you also saw what Osadebe administration did. And all of a sudden, then you said, look, the country must come under a unitary system of government. Has this tension between a federal system properly run and the unitary system been our major challenge post-independence, particularly since the advent of the military in 1966?
Thank you very much, Kingsley. I think I was just going to lead from the point that Professor made. Diversity, to me, is not the problem.
It's not.
The complexity of Nigeria itself is not the problem. The problem of Nigeria is the absence of development. When there is a big development, I mean, the America we all are finding our people going to, it's a very complex country, it's a very diverse country. There used to be something called the diversity quota, which tried to even bring in more diversity into the country and allowed for the emigration of people into that country. So I'm starting by saying, sir, that our diversity is not our problem. It is the lack of ability to turn that diversity into an asset for the country, which is why there's a sense of nostalgia to go back to what we knew that seemed to work better. It is not that we hate one another. It is that what we call unity is the unity of a few, the alliance of those who want to exploit. If that alliance was about the development of the country, the story would have been a very different story. The problem we have is that we have a very exploitative political elite that has led our country since the last 60 years. Extremely exploitative. They have always looked at their own personal and immediate interest over and above that of the country. And therefore, in building our structure and our understanding of unity around those issues, they have tended to undermine even the context of the country itself. I guess those who talk about an enlightened self-interest did not bring that phrase into being for nothing. They knew that people by nature, human beings by nature, were self-serving. They knew that we would always think about ourselves over and above everything. And this so-called ethnicity, when we're in a powerful position, we just pass a few crumbs to the people of our ethnicity. Does that really explain our adherence to that ethnicity? No. So back to your point, sir. There is a beauty in our existence as a very diverse country. What we have not been able to do is how do we manage that diversity? Do we think going back to what we had before will be a better management? Of course, there will still be problems. But I guess that Nigeria has reached a case, and I think my biggest problem, I read a document recently, is that we have reached a stage that we cannot govern ourselves anymore. I think we have reached that stage. A capacity deficit is big time in the Nigerian context. Our problem is that absence of ability. The capacity could be a moral one. The capacity could be a human resource one. Capacity could be the integrities and the abilities to do things. Because if you lack the integrity to tell the rest of Nigerians do things in a particular way, because you are not doing things in that particular way, you undermine the system. As we sit currently, one of the biggest challenges of the country at this moment is inability to deal with insecurity. And we have turned that inability to deal with insecurity to an ethnic question. Suddenly we have started the demonization of the Fulanis on account of our inability in the first place to deal with an insecurity problem. So you see how the incapacity of government itself predisposes us to the allegations and the things we say about each other. But there are principles that have been enunciated or promulgated to deal with these issues. Principles like federal character. Principles that we don't have the capacity to deal with it.
And even
we have undermined them to such a point
but you see,
that there's the lack of capacity.
It appears Ambassador, thanks. Part of the issue is, look, politics provides the organizing principle.
Yes.
For governance. Mm-hmm. Now, there are persons who argue, when we feel nostalgic about what happened in the First Republic with our founding fathers, what they achieved in their separate regions and so on and so forth, some federalist scholars will say, oh, that's because we had federalism, as it were. And that the challenge has been an attempt at imposing the unitary system of governance throughout the country, which is, when you're talking about insecurity, now some persons would then say, look, that's advocates, for instance, today of state police would argue, if we had state police, perhaps they might have been dealing with some of these issues before they now became a national challenge. Even though we also saw the abuses in the First Republic, Native Authority Police, and so on and so forth, misused for political ends. But I know that, Prof, you've made your point, but I will return to you. I want to sit out Okechukwu, the DG of Voice of Nigeria, to also speak to this particular question of how we have tried to use the organizing principles of politics and therefore to deliver on governance. Federalism versus unitary system as tensions in our polity over the past 60 years. And of course, the symptoms of the consequences such as we have today, as Ambassador Toye has said, with regard to insecurity.
There's no doubt that the federal government of Nigeria needs to shed weight in what is called devolution of powers. There are certain powers that we have at the federal government of Nigeria today that are not necessary. We do not need a federal government of Nigeria that is doing primary health care, primary education, this and that. Such powers should be devolved minimum to concurrent legislative lists. Certain mining as well should also go to concurrent legislative lists, so that some states might advance along that line. But there is also an utopian assumption. A lot of people are thinking that the regions, that even if there's a referendum, that most of the geopolitical zones will vote for region. Most of them will not. It has failed in the Abacha conference, he has failed in the Obasanjo conference, he failed in Jonathan conference. In 2014 Jonathan conference, a lot of people make an assumption that region was adopted. It wasn't. So the issue is that we should devolve some powers and more resources to the state units, because human beings by nature will behave like moths. If the Nigerian people see that the states are having more money and the local government are having more money, the tendency is for them to gravitate towards interrogating their states and their local councils. The Constitution, 1999 Constitution of Nigeria, yes, it has its own defects, but the truth of the matter is that there have been amendments, and these amendments might not be the bang some are expecting. But for instance, this Constitution has been amended, and Mr. President has signed it, that today money should go first line charge to local councils, to state assemblies. And he had also backed it up with the Executive Order 10. The Executive Order 10 was to give life to that amendment. But guess what? It's been opposed across party lines by most governors. They do not want the state judiciary to have a first line charge of direct funding. They do not have the local council to have a first line charge. But if they do, that will be better for the country. And if more money is removed from the federal percentage on revenue allocation and given to the states and councils directly, the tendency will be that the noise at the center and the push at the center will be lessened. Throughout the whole federal system of government, there are areas that the federal government of Nigeria should manage, and there are areas they should devolve between the federal and the states, concurrent, and some directly to residual list that the subnational government will be in charge. But let nobody start thinking that if there's a referendum today, that the geopolitical zones will agree to have one government at the regional level. No, it had failed roundly. Why it failed is the same I passed my neighbor syndrome. The people are not looking at development from direct management of how is public fund managed. Some are even happy. They will tell you that their brother, yes, are you trying my brother for stealing? What of the other man? No. We should join hands and interrogate our leaders on how they manage our public funds. Because the selfishness tendency is what is undermining our growth. And without development, we'll have more agitation by the day. We'll have more insecurity. Look at, for instance, the issue of agriculture. Mr. President had in the past 5 years initiated what is called the Anchor Borrowers Program in our agriculture, which gives the community ownership of whichever crop that is arable in their own land. And luckily, the country is well endowed with arable soil, that one crop or the other that grows in the north, some grow in the south, some grow in the west, some grow in the east. So we should start looking at what are those potholes that is leading us to insecurity, that is leading us to corruption. Those potholes is potholes of underdevelopment, the absence of growth. And we can grow, and we can only do it ourselves. But if we continue to march on ethnic basis, that this ethnic group is our enemy, if I don't appoint my brother to a high office, it will be bad on my side, we cannot go anywhere. But I think we shall overcome.
DJ Von Osita Okechukwu, we understand you've got a flight to catch, so we'll just appreciate you at this point for your contributions and wish you safe flight to your destination. DG Osita Okechukwu, Director General of Voice of Nigeria, joining us from our Enugu studio. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, let's again bring in our guest via Skype, Senator Gbenga Obadara, before we come back to Ambassador Nkoyo Toyo. Can we have him on? Is he on? Okay, fine. Senator Obadara, well, I'm sure you have listened. We lost our connection with you earlier on. But Kingsley asked a question that it would appear that the gains, of post independence as before from 1960 under regionalism would appeal to a lot of people, and then of course would present an urge or a desire to revert to that period. But the convergence opinion here in the studio from our two guests would appear that we do not have the capacity to deal with the gaps in our diversity, which is development. From your perspective, how do we begin to develop this capacity?
Are you getting back to me?
Yeah, we're with you. We are with you, Senator Badara. We are with you. You want me to?
Thank you.
Fine. Did you get my question?
Thank you, madam.
Did you get my question?
No, please, because the link is poor. I'm hearing you now.
Yeah, so I said Kingsley had earlier posed a question about, the urge or desire to revert to regionalism because of the fruits.
Not exactly. I didn't say return to regionalism. I used regionalism to illustrate the federal system of government versus the unitary system of government, which the military then introduced from 1966.
Okay, I think it was
where you have federating units now by way of states and not regions, could you then continue on that theme of a unitary system of government versus what some advocates will refer to as true federalism?
Okay, did you get that? Did you get that?
Yeah, I got it. Yes.
Okay, so
I got it. Yes.
Okay, so take along with you because the opinion here.
I'm hearing you. You see, the problem we have in the federating unit of the Federal Republic have been so much misconstrued by even the governance. Now imagine there are only two federating units, the state and the federal. Look at the situation, what happened when they brought in the issue of the local government. You see, the governors, majority of them, if not all, they kicked against it. Now, see what has been achieved when we were running the regional government. I'm proud to have said, tremendously, our forefathers that fought for independence, they achieved more. Now, see what happened in the western region of the western region. See what Chief Obafemi Awolowo did with agriculture. There was no oil that time. Are you talking of what Sardauna did in the north and in the east as well? They were more developed at the rate that they were going that time than what we have achieved so far. So the problem is, as one of the mantra of the present government, eat what you produce. Now that time, see the first television in Africa, see the stadium, the first stadium built by Chief Obafemi Awolowo, see the free education, the health, and see what happened in the pyramid, the granite pyramid in the north, and many, see the coal in the east. Now we are very proud of them having been able to establish that. At the regional government, many are more made accountable. If they're accountable, I mean, you can see many people are coming up with impunities. If we need to say fact to ourselves, many things we would not even have accepted as a common norm. One would say, if we have a regional government, lots will be achieved. And part of it, I said, is we must go back to parliamentary government. They are the parliamentary government at regional level. You will see that the amount used in running government is lower than this presidential system of government. The presidential, even at the local government level, the councillor wants to have first lady of the local of the ward, the chairman of the council, the first lady and the paraphernalia of office. And again, you look at how those things, do you know the amount of money our governors are using? Look at the entourage. At times, I mean, you're going to have almost 20, 40 cars following a governor. I mean, we don't have that resources. The best that will have happened, a prime minister in a regional government is accountable, will have to choose his ministers among the parliamentarians. And it goes down, down, and down like that. And for this to evolve, I would say that the National Assembly, when I was there, we mooted it. I mean, with the Senator Keremadu, and even David Mark. All those things were attempted at altering. But then, what are we really seeing in the Federal Republic of today? I still take it that the best for Nigeria to achieve, if we are not going into a big problem because we don't have that money, we must cut our clothes according to our size. We must be able to administer veritably what we are generating as a nation. Then look at the salary level of all states. How many states are viable in the present situation? How many states? You're talking of Lagos, you're talking of Rivers, you can talk of, Bayelsa is not even as lower as 8 local governments. They are always staff salary. You can see that if care is not taken, we will continue borrowing. As at today, we are 31.5 trillion in debt. As a federal republic, how are we going to pay this? Are we going to go, asking for reduction in loans, begging the World Bank and the people that we are owing? We cannot just do it.
Put you on hold. Thank you. We've noted your point. Let's come back to Ambassador Nkoyo Tuoyo. While you're responding to Kingsley's question, relationship between, the federating arms, I also like you to respond to the issue that you raised about capacity. And let's, within the short period we have, how do we begin to develop capacity to deal with the gaps in our diversity?
Yes. What Kingsley alluded to was a looser form of federalism. What we have today is a more guided in terms of closer to the unitary form, like he said, which is why we're asking for something that is more elastic, a loose form of federalism, which gives the regions better accessibility. This is 60 years away.
But when we had that,
yeah.
when we had that, there were still pitfalls which plunged us
Absolutely.
into.
You'll always have a pitfall. That's why this debate will not end. You will turn it into this direction. Somebody will say it's not loose enough. It has to be different. So that's the tension. This whole thing about restructuring is how much restructuring should it be, which is basically a devolution of powers. Give us back our powers at the region and don't keep it at the center. And then you will see that at some point when you give it all to the region again, the region will begin to say, you've given us too much, take it back. That is the nature, the cyclical nature of this business that we are getting into. But if we had development, and then people were able to deal with these conversations in the context of development, then you find that we are dealing with a totally different discussion entirely. The reason that we are dealing with it in such an ethnic coloration that has caused us a very fractionalization or fragmentation of the debate itself is because of the absence of development. So there's a conflicting of so many ideas in one. On the one hand, we are saying we want to develop. Give us the ability to develop. Let's go away and develop at our own different paces and forget about trying to do so as a government. Where the problem has been with this federal system we call Nigeria is what the Osita was trying to talk about. Trying to do everything from the center. In the end, what we're saying is, you still need a center, but do less things and let the regions do what they are doing. That's the whole debate. But you mustn't take away the fact that the absence of the capacity to do. Look at the quality of the human resource based on the quality of the education, based on the quality of governance, based on it is layered. A capacity problem is what is building itself out there in Nigeria.
We never had this capacity challenge at the beginning. And some persons will say, even the fair...
What was our population, Kingsley, at the time?
Well, probably. Even the census...
What was the level of urbanization at the time?
Hang on, Ambassador. Yes. Even our census figures were contentious.
Yeah.
And the level of urbanization was of course...
So we're living on subsistence mostly. And so we could manage our economy at a very different level. Today we have a totally different pattern of existence. A large majority of our people are still living at subsistence level, but a more significant level have become urbanized. They have no attachment to land. The amount of land you have for the development of your people has reduced. The human ratio to land itself has changed entirely. So you are dealing. There's a sense of romanticism about the past, which we are holding on to. But you don't blame us for holding on to it because the present has not given us any hope, and therefore
I'm going to ask Prof. Is it also necessarily the case that almost virtually since independence, our politics has been geared more towards crisis management rather than getting focused on governance to deliver the public goods? When you look at the military regimes, were, they were military, nobody invited them, but they had to be watching over their shoulders because they could be overthrown at any minute. So they had their own class contradictions. Then the political class came. Second Republic, they had their own class contradictions. Now you have the Fourth Republic, and the class contradictions have become so exacerbated, resulting in the symptoms that we are seeing now, namely part of this, Ambassador Okoye says, glaring lack of capacity to provide governance.
Yeah. Well, I guess we cannot run away from this systemic crisis we're talking about.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we cannot run away. But I think again we come back to the point raised by Her Excellency the Ambassador, that is the issue of capacity. And I think for me, what has eroded our capacity, even if we had it, comparatively, it was much better in the First Republic. There's no doubt about it. But the fact of the matter is that, the extent to which we have been so much saddled with corruption, and that has diminished the capacity of government. There's no doubt about it.
Absolutely.
I had the opportunity of, heading an institution. And I ask myself the question, if government voted this sum of money to carry out a project, and if it was not done, how do we define the development or the progressive development of the university? We will not have. So I think we need to actually look at the governance system in terms of how do we actually bring in the necessary discipline to ensure that whatever is available, the resources, because actually I don't even see why we should be the poverty capital of the world. Given the resources that she mentioned earlier and others have also mentioned.
But who should drive it? Who should drive this?
That's the point.
It's all of us now.
It's
all of us now, the way I look at it. Yeah. Because, Chinua Achebe said, the problem of this country is certainly the question of leadership. And I also added that it's also the question of followership. It's a question of, how do we actually get the leadership to, come to terms with the fact that whatever is the aspiration of whatever is the conceptualization of development that the leadership is thinking about, do they actually, have they actually mobilized the people to come along with, such aspiration?
Well, okay, I know that there are many perspectives to this matter. Some persons, again, Ambassador Okoye already warned us about being so romantic about the past, but we cannot but be romantic about the past. When you hear some Nigerian analysts tell you, oh, look at Malaysia, oh, look at Singapore, oh, look at Korea.
We were the same at that time.
We were the same when we were even slightly ahead of them. Yeah. But Korea had a modernizing military force.
Absolutely.
When they were in power. And Singapore had political longevity. Lee Kuan Yew, check out how many decades he was in office. Could you have had a Lee Kuan Yew in Nigeria staying for that long?
No, but we also had a program. It's just not the longevity of service, yes, or being in service. Yes. But the fact that there was a program that Lee Kuan Yew, brought into being.
And what might have happened? What might have happened? I know we're getting pressed for time now.
Yeah.
What might have happened if the First Republic had not collapsed in January 1966?
Well, it's hypothetical now. We can't actually provide empirical evidence to justify what we're going to say. But the fact of the matter was that there was a trajectory of development going on at that point. And if it was only a question of, if the military had, excused themselves, they would have still been, there would be muddling along. But at the same time, lessons
like
will be learned.
India has done,
Yeah.
All right. Let me come in here. Professor Nuhu Yakubu and Ambassador Okoye Toyo. This is just the first in a series of discussions we'll have, on this issue, Nigeria at 60. So I just quickly like to appreciate both of you. Professor Nuhu Yakubu, who is, of course, a political scientist and former Vice Chancellor of the University of Abuja and Sokoto State University. Thank you, Prof, for sharing your thoughts with us. Quite insightful.
Thank you.
I shan't leave you without one word.
Yes.
The young people of Nigeria don't think as we're thinking in this room.
Yeah.
I sat with a young woman who said to me, I don't know what I hear about Ransom Kuti. We don't know what you people have done in the past. We're not part of that story. This discussion we are having, many young people are doing Nigeria very proud. We must recognize that. There is an ugly side to us, but there is also a beautiful side to us. A lot of the young people are doing a lot of great things for the country, but at the same time, a lot of them are doing a lot of horrible things.
You will have more
so I would say let's bring young people to speak so that we have a different perspective.
We certainly will. Ambassador Okoye Toyo.
Thank
you very much.
Thank you.
Founder and...
sometimes we talk about the youth. Some people talk about the youth, and then you don't find that canalization of their energies into the mainstream issues or activities of the country. Ambassador Okoye, that's a dire warning. The youth are just on their own. The distance between them and us just might become
do this for the youth. Do the same meeting for the youth.
Might just be, we've always had young persons, engaged on our conversations from time to time.
Thank you. We need to go. We need to go from this. Ambassador, former ambassador to Ethiopia and permanent rep to the African Union. Marian.
Thank you.
Former member House of Representatives and, of course, advisor to the Cross River State Government. Thank you. Let's also quickly appreciate the Senator Benga Obadara, politician and former lawmaker representing Ogun Central Senatorial District, who joined us via Skype. Many thanks to you. And, of course, to all you that have sent your tweets, quite a number of tweets you have sent in. Thank you. Let's take a short break now. When we come back, we'll look at labor, suspended labor strike and deregulation.
Afro Culture presents First Nigerian Entertainment and Economic Roundtable, Lagos 2020.
Theme: positioning the entertainment and creative industry to lead private sector role in supporting federal and state governments' efforts at achieving urgent economic diversification.
The roundtable is supported by Federal Ministry of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Federal Ministry of Information and Culture, the Nigerian Television Authority, and Lagos State Government.
For sponsorship and enquiries, call 0908-501-0000.
Nigerian Entertainment and Economic Roundtable.
Mainstreaming the entertainment and creative industry into the nation's economy.
Nigeria is a rich nation of green land, rich resources, countless crops and commodities sufficient to feed and provide a means of livelihood for her teeming population. Chin up, Nigeria, the giant of Africa. Exciting times are here. We can be self-reliant and grow our economy if we work together to explore our potential. It takes a whole nation. Let us get involved. Buy Nigerian to grow Nigeria.
Edition of TV Guide is out, featuring great personalities from all walks of life. Expository interview with a young TV presenter who shows passion on what she does, Morayo Afolabi Brown of TVC. Pick a copy of this compendium of mind-blowing stories and get abreast with issues as regards media convergence, leadership, health, star profiles, star programs, fashion, sports, human angle stories, and lots more. Meet some media professionals within our space who have paid their dues in no small ways. TV Guide, very incisive, very educative and compelling. Grab a copy at the vendor near you or NTA stations nationwide. TV Guide, your indispensable companion.
You're welcome back here. I still Good Morning Nigeria, reaching you on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We have as our second topic for discussion this morning aspects of the deregulation of the petroleum downstream sector. And with us in the studios now is the National Secretary of the Independent Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria, IPMAN, Danladi Pasale. Pasale, pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you very much.
On Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning.
Straight away, tell us, what are for you, the likely challenges that will arise from the total deregulation, as it were now, of the downstream sector?
No, the truth is that there is no, we have been clamoring for deregulation for quite a long time, because the truth is that regulation has become an issue in the system. When you have a full-time deregulation, it encourages investment, bring in investors, and it will even encourage our members to go into modular refinery, and even some of them are putting up a bigger refinery of 200,000 barrels per day. So it is really an issue that we have been clamoring for a long time, that we should have a full-time deregulation.
So when you say that there's been an issue that's been on the table, we are aware of that. Now the regulation has come, as it were. For IPMAN, what does it mean? I'm asking this question because it appears that for some persons, the regulation is primed on the continuing importation of refined petroleum products. It takes a while to set up modular refineries, no question about that.
Yes.
Yes. So what will be the role of IPMAN in all of this?
No, the truth is that IPMAN now will be engaged in importation. If we go through the system, we are prepared, and we have been doing it before. We have done it before. We import petroleum products, and also after some few time, there will be the idea of, even as at now, there are some modular refineries that are springing up in Delta, in Port Harcourt, and some other states. So people are now putting off their resources. And apart from that, you should know that there is this gas program. The federal government is launching the gas program by this October. And IPMAN member wanted to key in because gas is an alternative to petrol. And it is even cheaper, and it is even environmentally more convincing and more cheaper, because in terms of petrol, we're talking of 160 something. And you know, when we talk of the regulation, it doesn't mean that the price will continue to increase. At the time, the price will still come down. It will crash.
I'm wondering, you know, why the pressure on deregulation. Like you said, you've been clamoring for deregulation for a long time, and indeed, it's been there for a long time.
Yes.
Why not clamor, you know, for addressing the real issues which has dealt a big blow to the downstream sector, which is, of course, you know, putting our refineries on, you know, back on stream, increasing the capacity of our local refining and all that. Why are we bent on deregulate? We should push more for you know, turning around our refineries.
You see, you agree with me, for over 10 to 15 years we have been putting in so much resources on our refineries, and every day is the same story. The government will pump in money, and after 1 or 2, 3 months, the refinery will still go down. So I think that is the problem. And you know, with the Nigerian system, the best option is to allow the private participation. And with private participation, things will be moving. And we're assuring it's the question of 2 to 3 months. You see, things will start changing. With this deregulation,
what will start changing, and what are the factors that will drive that change? The question that is uppermost on our minds, and Claire just asked that again, the supply side. The supply side. Where are our supplies coming from? I hear about modular refineries, which is a good thing, but a refinery to be producing 5,000 barrels or 5,000 liters, or this in the meantime, you have gigantic refineries, the same you have elsewhere in the world, and they are working.
Yes. No, as at now, you know, the Dangote refinery is coming up, and then apart from that, not even 5,000, some modular refinery are producing 10 to 20,000 barrels, as at now. So you see, the truth is that with this, the only small challenges is the issue of forex, to import the products. And with that, and we have gotten the assurance by the GMD and even the CBN, with that, it will encourage our member to go out and source for the product. With that competition, the price will still come down.
How would the price come down? I mean, you are importing products, you are importing external inflation, you are importing external job costs, high job costs, you are importing externalities, and you are saying that the price will come down. In fact, I want you to respond to this speculation or this view that if we are not careful, consumers will be at the mercy of marketers who can fix their prices arbitrarily, take it or leave it.
No, you see, if you look at the situation that is why the market forces do a lot of issue in that matter. Where there are competition, where are people that wanted to turn around their businesses. You see, the issue of market forces is an issue. If you bring your product and you think you can sell it higher, some other person will bring his product and sell it lower than your own. It happened about 3-4 months ago, whereby the market forces has forced the price to come down.
National Secretary,
let me tell you, by the time now, about 12 states has been earmarked for gas program, which is LPG and NCNG. And in some few months to come, in a month to come, already there is a test run in Benin. NIPCO have started it for the past 2 to 3, 4 years. If you go to Benin now, you find out that 40 to 50% of the vehicles there are on gas.
But sorry, Kingsley, you know, I know government has said the finances can no longer sustain, you know, the subsidizing and all that. But I'm also wondering, or people are wondering, can't there be a form of equilibrium, Kingsley, between regulation and deregulation? We've seen in the past, where before the Great Depression, we know it was the American economy was highly regulated. It was highly deregulated, and then it still crashed. We see what is going on. Government is putting in more measures to guide the sectors. So is there no way for us to achieve equilibrium between regulation and deregulation of the downstream sector?
You see, the situation in the world now, the whole world has economic issue. And Nigeria is also part of the system, part of the situation as at now. So the question now is, do we still have money to be putting in 1.something trillion to support subsidy? So the only option, let's start it somewhere. At least we have started in a good footing. Because spending that trillion, it means Nigeria will lose a lot of things. Instead of that, the government is bringing in a lot of palliative. There is Anchor program. There are so many programs that will help the workers and even the Nigerians.
Like auto,
and we should appreciate that. And auto gas.
So what do you think about that?
No, that is a wonderful project. It is a kind of a revolution that the government is bringing in. And that revolution will take off in this October.
Okay, now, we have actually now progressed beyond whether partial deregulation or full deregulation. We are now in full deregulation.
Yeah.
And you indicated that, it will be a trigger for investments. What kind of investments should we expect from IPMAN members?
Yeah, you see, as at now, IPMAN control over 80% of the downstream. And even some of our members have graduated into billion of tank farms. And as I'm talking to you now, they'll continue to graduate into billion of modular refineries. And even also encouraging the gas project. And the government has already set up money to support people that are ready to invest in gas. And that gas project, it is a miracle. With that, I'm telling you, people will be even buying gas at 90-something naira.
All right, Kate, I hear my colleagues say they can't wait to buy fuel at 98 naira.
Fuel at the time.
To buy gas at 98
Yes,
naira.
90-something naira. And you see, let me tell you, the gas is not only on fuel, on motories.
Yeah.
Even the generator in our houses, even the machines and the keke napep and everything, they'll all be using gas.
All right, thank you.
So that's the revolution the government is bringing in.
Thank you, Danladi Pasali,
Thank you very much.
National Secretary of the Independent Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria, IPMAN. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so that's it for us on Good Morning Nigeria today. We thank you for being with us. The program returns tomorrow, same time, 7 in the morning. Stay safe and be well. Coronavirus isn't out yet. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
And I'm Claire Delabo Abdul Razak. Also remember, wear a mask, observe physical distancing, and stand against rape and rapists to be a stop. Bye-bye.